So I think it's interesting to talk about how we think about suburbs and cities and all these terminologies. One of the objections that I hear often about bringing in transit into what here is called the city, but really is the suburbs. This is El Cerrito, California. Is the worry that it's going to become like a New York City, noisy and crowded and stuff. And of course, if you know that it's actually quite the opposite. That in fact, well, first of all, these neighborhoods were created using transit. The key route system is what it came to be known in the 40s and 50s here in the East Bay of California. LA was a big streetcar suburb town. But beyond that historical fact, the idea that you should bring in transit, like light transit, rail in particular, is to reduce the amount of car traffic. There's a lot of reasons you want to do that. One of them is noise. Got a lot of personal stories. We all have personal stories about living in places with lots of car traffic and noise. This is the school here, Fairmount School here in El Cerrito. Up there is the public library. El Cerrito doesn't have a real downtown. The city knows that. They talk about it. But the reason I've chosen this place to frame this, literally, is because of that destroyed "Please don't kill our children" sign here. You want to get rid of as many cars in suburbs as possible to make the living more suburban so that people can walk, bike, stroll, take light rail to places of commerce nearby, and so that your children don't get run over by cars. When everyone has to drive a car to get anywhere, especially in a tiny suburb, you're just increasing the costs of maintaining the roads. You're increasing individual owners' costs. Right now, the middle class is getting squeezed out in America. So finally, I think people are paying attention. Oh God, it is expensive to drive a car. Here in California, if you financed your car, you're probably spending about $1.50, maybe more, a mile just to get around. So you drive downtown. Of course, El Cerrito doesn't have downtown, but you drive somewhere, let's say Costco in El Cerrito, and you just spent maybe $10, $15 to get there and back, when you could have perhaps biked it for much less. Now, we're not going to get into whether it's practical to bike to Costco or not. That's not up for debate. In a small area, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mile radius, a cargo bike is going to be more than enough. But you certainly can't carry a family in a cargo bike. That's okay. You can carry some young kids. What do you do when they turn 15 or 16? Of course, what do you do if is such a red herring of a question in this debate. So we'll just jump past that and say that, that sign you saw back there that was smashed by a car, that's going to be your kid or your grandpa or your father when he's 80 years old and he just wants to get out of the house and walk to the library. He's going to get run over. In America, 44,000 people die per year. I'm a lot of breath climbing this hill here. In car accidents, but millions are crippled. Millions wind up in the emergency room. 3.5 million a year. People wind up in the emergency room due to car crashes. And many hundreds of thousands are permanently crippled by car crashes. So by bringing in transit, we reduce the cost of living. We increase resilience against, blockages in the Strait of Hormuz. And we make suburban living nicer, quieter, more pleasant. And finally, of course, as I said at the beginning, less expensive and less deadly. Okay, as I'm a little bit out of breath, climbing to my job here on Stockton Street in El Cerrito, I will say goodbye and thank you for watching this short and impromptu conversation.